What's up, y'all? I'm Taylor Jacobson, founder of Focusmate. I'm optimistic that people have a lot of gripes about where we're at in society right now. And I think the pendulum always swings. And a lot of the conversations I'm having on a one-to-one level, people are already doing things differently and taking action to swing things back the other way. Something I'm less optimistic about is we live in a society that is more interconnected than ever. But I think that it structurally reduces accountability, personal responsibility for our actions, for our behaviors. And I think that sometimes make it harder to grow into the people that we want to
be. Future Optimist.
What an awesome and thoughtful answer. So great to have you here, Taylor. Very excited to hash this out. I got to say, first off, I'm really jealous of your hair. I wish I had hair like that. Mine is thinning. You're holding on a lot better than I am to this aging thing.
Thanks, man. Just don't do the top-down camera view, and
yeah, exactly. Fun. Anytime I got a backlight going on, it's like, yeesh. Oh yeah, that's why the kids think we're old. But no, it's so great to have you. I've been excited to have this conversation with you for a while. I do have to ask, though, why we're having a podcast at all, because we spoke before this taping, full disclosure, we spoke, and you asked me for some advice, and then you just ended up going to ChatGPT anyways. So why don't just have my ChatGPT agent talk with your ChatGPT agent? They can figure it all out, and then just summarize it for the rest of us.
And I think that is yet to be revealed. We'll have to find out, but I don't know about you. I feel like ChatGPT leave something to be desired in the Department of Humanities. So I'm here because I like you. I like what you stand for. I think we're going to have a fun time and talk about some cool stuff that'll hopefully be really, really beneficial for your listeners.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited as well. And I think one of the questions, you touched on it, obviously, in your pessimism and your optimism, but the question is this loneliness epidemic. What can we do about it? The stats are very clear. I just read a book called The Anxious Generation. Have you read that book, by the way? Do you know it? It's basically about the sharp decline in mental health, particularly in adolescents and teenagers, with the rise of the front-facing camera and Instagram. Basically, as soon as people started posting selfies on the internet for all to see, especially children, mental health went down, loneliness skyrocketed, depression skyrocketed, anxiety skyrocketed. And we don't really know what the effects of all of these technologies are. We don't know what the effects of limitless Zoom meetings are like this. So there is this movement, I would say, this counter movement towards real things and real authentic connection. And people seem to yearn for that. But yet it seems to be increasingly out of reach for our society, like you touched upon. So how did you come up with this idea? And how can we bring some of that humanity back into our interactions?
Yeah, so let's talk about what Focusmate is. I think that'll help contextualize. Focusmate is a global community of people who generally work alone. They work from home. They might be students or freelancers or remote workers. And a lot of us who work in an isolating environment really struggle with procrastination and loneliness.
Yeah.
And Focusmate is a platform where our community members can find each other and schedule time on a video call one-on-one. And the entire purpose of those video calls is just to keep each other company and hold each other accountable while you're each working on your own tasks. And it's a structured video call. It's either half an hour, 1 hour, or an hour and a half. And at the start, you greet your partner and you just say, hey, Ross, what are you working on this hour? Mm-hmm. And Ross is prepping for a podcast interview or writing a brief for a client or whatever. And then Ross, you say, Taylor, what are you working on? And I'm doing some physical therapy, whatever. That's what I share. Yeah. And then we just get to it. And we are each there on camera, but we're working on our thing. And at the end of the time, a bell goes off, and that's the signal to come back together and check in and say, hey, Ross, how'd it go? Did you get that brief done? And you ask me, how'd that physical therapy go? And that's it. If you vibed with your partner, if you want to work with them again, you can save them as a favorite partner. There's a bunch of settings, so you can adjust some of the details of how your sessions work so it works best for you. And the point is, it's just insanely effective at helping people get their butt in the seat if that's what they struggle with, and then making a good choice about how to spend that time, choosing the most important thing, and then following through on it. That's what Focusmate is. Like, you kind of alluded to this, but a lot of people ask me, like, what are you doing about AI? And it's an important question. I would say what we're doing is we're leaning into that people need to be around other people. I just fundamentally believe that human animals will never suddenly stop being animals just because technology gets better. We're mammals, we're pack animals or tribal animals. Our need for connection is not going anywhere. The impact of connection, the impact of the presence of a real person is not going anywhere. And that's what makes what we do work.
Why is it that we seem to be drifting further and further away no matter what we do? Why is it that, technology, and in fact, some people might think it ironic, the very concept of using technology to solve this problem versus, say, going to a coffee shop where you're surrounded physically with other people. Why is it that the more we embrace technology that ostensibly makes us social creatures, after all, it's called social media. In theory, we should be more connected than ever. Why do we seem to be drifting further and further away as a species from real, meaningful human interaction?
I mean, this is not rocket science. We have all these addictive technologies on our phone, and as long as people are making money off of providing us with addictive, cheap calorie versions of connection, like social media, I think it's just such an uphill battle. Like, I don't think I'm strong enough to keep like Instagram on my phone and like win that war and be like, oh, not right now. Like, I'd rather do push-ups than scroll. So I think the answer is that we're not designed to win this battle. Like, things are addictive because we're not built for them. So
because they break our brain, they truly hack our brain. Find the person who could resist heroin, for example.
Exactly.
There's nobody out there,
exactly.
No matter how strong-willed they are. Yeah.
So I'm not at all optimistic about that. Speaking of, optimism, pessimism, frankly, I think that people will be unhappier in this day and age because of these technologies. And it's just to us to kind of accept and embrace this is how it is. And we have to find the best ways to respond to that, individually. Like, for me, it's just, I know I can't have these things on my phone. It's too hard. And yeah, I do spend a lot. I go to coffee shops, I get on Focusmate, things like this.
So what was then the personal story? I mean, obviously it sounds like a deep personal story behind being so touched by this that you were driven to action and to build a company. How did this begin, and why did you decide that this was a vehicle that might help? Was it a personal problem that you faced that you wanted help with, or was it just something you witnessed in others?
Some years ago, I was running a support group for some men, and one guy came to me because he was working from home and procrastinating on a really important project, and we just started brainstorming on what we could do. I suspect somewhere I had always had a fantasy of somebody keeping me company while I worked, and I just was too ashamed to ever ask anybody to do that with me. It just seemed like there must be something wrong with me. So, but then I had this friend in front of me who needed support, and that was a context in which I felt like I could share this fantasy idea with him because maybe it would help him. So I just suggested, hey, let's get on a video call and we'll keep each other company. And I knew all these psych hacks. So I said, okay, we're going to tell each other exactly what we're going to do. We're going to be really specific. We're going to write it down. Then we're going to stay there on camera. So all these layers of things that I thought were going to help us. And we tried it and it just worked. Both of us being lifelong procrastinators, doing something that suddenly just worked. It was like, whoa, that, it was a feeling of relief and excitement. So he and I just started working like this for a few days in a row. But then really quickly, it just became clear, like, if this is so game changing for the two of us, like, obviously we're not the only ones that could benefit from this. So the idea of building a community around this, that you could have 24/7 availability, find other people that you really liked working with, it just was really obvious.
That's interesting. So obviously this type of concept could be really used for anything. There are a lot of people that are lonely for many different reasons. I'm curious why you chose productivity as your way into this. Because, for example, in elder care, they might benefit from having somebody there just to be there in that human connection without the goal of achieving something. I'm curious as to why why that seemed the most logical method in? Was it just because it was something that you felt personally that you were struggling with, or?
Yes, it could be that. Certainly there are lots of people who need connection and need company. For me at that moment in time, the failure to follow through on things was getting in the way of living a life that I wanted, just like really suffering because I hadn't accomplished what I wanted to in my life up to that point. And that's a really painful, miserable place to be. People who are in that spot of they know what they want to accomplish in their lives and they can't get out of their own way. And can we come together and build a community to support each other around the solution that really is like night and day in terms of your ability to just get done what you want to get done.
So how many years have you been doing this, and how many people have you got on the platform right now?
I started in 2016. At this point, we have members in every country in the world. We've hosted over 10 million body doubling, we call it body doubling sessions and counting. Yeah.
That's remarkable. What an accomplishment. So you must have then witnessed in that much time a lot of trends, a lot of transformations. What are some of the patterns that you've noticed, or what are some of the biggest transformations that you've seen in other people?
Probably my favorite thing is when somebody writes in and they say, and this happens all the time, some version of, I'd given up on this dream that I had. I just didn't think that I had the constitution to start my own business, for example, or get this degree. And I tried everything. Right. I tried therapy and drugs and every single hack there is. And eventually I just gave up. And then I found Focusmate and it just worked. And I just finished this degree or submitted my thesis or, my business now has this many clients, or, they've built the thing, they built the dream that they gave up on.
Right.
That's probably my favorite. Yeah.
I mean, that's clearly incredible feedback. Anybody would love to have feedback like that. Why do you think after so many sessions with so many people, why do you think that some people seem to have these tremendous barriers towards doing this type of work and other people seem to not have this? Do you have any insight into the nature of procrastination and why so many people feel that way?
Definitely. I mean, this being also a really personal problem that I've struggled with and looked into extensively. And then, like you said, just so many data points of other people. I would say there's probably two big reasons that some people procrastinate and others don't. One is, let's say it's a nervous system issue. It's a trauma issue. So if you have a nervous system that has a certain type of early developmental experiences that will put your body in a chronic state of dysregulation, a chronic state of stress. And what we know about the nervous system and stress, when you are activated, even if there's no obvious perceptible threat in your environment, if you have a nervous system that has this kind of early developmental trauma conditioning, you have a body and a nervous system that will be hyper attuned to threat. And people commonly know that as fight or flight or freeze. And when you're in one of these states, your body, it's not optimized for focus. It's optimized. The blood flow is in your spinal column, in your extremities. You are getting ready to do one of those three things, fight or flight or freeze. Even the muscles in your ears change so that you're listening for threats. And so if you have a body that is predisposed to be looking for threats, you're basically always switched into this state that's just makes it really hard to focus. So if your body's preparing to fight or flee, it could be a very active sort of feeling, but a lot of us procrastinators have this sort of like active, agitated, jumpy, need to do something, move something, twitch, whatever. That is not conducive to being still, being intentional, doing deep, thoughtful work. That really requires us to feel safe in order to do that. So that's number one. It's a traumatized nervous system that struggles to calm down and feel safe and get focused. The other is, it's frankly connected to that, but it's forcing ourselves to do things that are just misaligned. Or forcing ourselves to do too much.
I want to touch on that one for sure, yeah.
I was talking to a friend recently another lifelong procrastinator, and he said the thing that he, he thought it was a life sentence. He thought he was going to be a procrastinator forever. And as he's kind of gone through his healing journey in therapy and so forth, one of the biggest shifts he's made is he used to pride himself on being somebody that was just nonstop on the go producer. And he would use stress and last minute pressure to get things done.
Right.
But he would also procrastinate a ton. And what he realized is that he was activating his nervous system by forcing himself to do a lot of things that he didn't want to do. And as he, let's say, was more indulgent about slowing down, taking rests, choosing projects that he was really excited about, the tendency to procrastinate just kind of started to vanish. And this is connected to the nervous system thing too, because when we force ourselves to do things that we don't really want to do, it's the only reason you do that is because you're scared. The only reason you do things you don't want to do is you feel like you have to. And that happens all the time. That's how do we subsist in the real world? You know, sometimes you got to do things you don't want to do. But if you're constantly making yourself do things you don't want to do, it's signaling to the body, hey, we're not safe enough to say no to this thing. We have to. So it's this kind of constant feedback loop of, I'm not okay, I have to do this, that will keep that fight or flight response switched on.
Boy, there's so much good stuff to tackle in there. Many different points to break into this. I wouldn't say that I've suffered from procrastination as such in my life. Anxiety, definitely. And to me, I think a lot of the times when I've done procrastinative things, I guess, it's been because I believed that something wasn't going to work out. Or, you know, you're sold this bill, especially on social media. You need to post 100 times a day across 50 channels. You got influencers like Gary Vee saying, hustle harder. If you really want it that bad, you'll be going after it 24/7, right? But I think when I don't do stuff, I think there's often a voice, there's a path that I don't see, or there's a belief that even if I do this, I'm not going to get the result that I want. And I've certainly had that at moments in my life where it's like, you know, did, you know, hundreds of pieces of content on TikTok, never grew a following there. And then you think, then that voice is like, what the fuck are you even doing? Why are you even wasting your time? It's not working out. And then that starts a cycle where you don't want to do it even more. So I think that's my particular spin on it versus just putting things off, which is, it's somewhat related. I do love what you said about the fear and the safety thing. Because fear is a topic that I talk about a lot. Also, when I give talks, I think there are two angles to the fear component. There's a positive angle that there are fears that we need to break through and things we need to get over, like maybe a fear of public speaking or a fear of making a toast or just something that good things are on the other side of it. But then there are other fears where good things are not on the other side of it. And it's sort of hard to know the difference. Are you not doing this because you really shouldn't be and you're misaligned, or are you not doing this because you just need a little push? I also don't quite know where that line is.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I don't think it's actually that hard if we take like a quiet moment alone and just ask ourselves that question. Let's say it's getting up on stage, right? Or, you know, getting on camera, or whatever it is. It's like, okay, do you really want to perform your music in front of people? And yeah, that requires some courage, to be honest there. And certainly all of us at different times lie to ourselves because it's easier. Is this really authentic and aligned for me? And I'm just scared? Or am I forcing myself to do something that I'm not really a yes to?
Yeah. And I think what makes it even more difficult is that as we have this external world, this digital world, where there are so many different interests and so many different people and bots and foreign interests and who knows what's real, you can do something that you feel is aligned and get hate for it, get shamed for it. You can bare your soul and do something very noble and brave and honorable and get flamed or doxxed or extremely negative public sentiment, especially with kids who have less barriers. And then that's forcing you back into the, should I do anything at all? In a self-doubt cycle where, again, you know, is that fear misalignment, or is that fear you recalibrating based on how this world reacts to your authenticity? Do you understand what I mean by that?
Yeah, that's such a critical thing to point out. we're not designed for this kind of feedback, this level of feedback, this constancy of feedback. And it's almost like abhorrent in like modern society to just switch off being a consumer, right? We sort of have this narrative that you have to be in the know. Again, the human animal's designed to be in the know about your tribe, what's going on in my tribe. But now we have the ability to be in the know about every single thing that's happening in the world, and what's really the benefit of that. And, in this conversation, it's like, what's really also the cost of that? At least personally, I consume very little.
Yeah.
Because for me,
I'm the same.
Being in the know, I think is overrated. What's not overrated is like, you have a certain amount of life force energy, and when it's gone, it's gone. When you're off this planet, who knows? But I don't want to go to the grave regretting that I didn't create the things I wanted to create. And to your like really beautiful point, like maybe we have to be in isolation from all those voices in order to hear our own voice, because we are social animals. So as soon as we switch on those other voices, like it's only natural that we give them importance, right? We're trying to survive in our tribe by attuning to, what's good and cool, hip behavior right now, what's not, which I stopped doing. So all these responses to try to fit in, they're adaptive responses if we live in a tribe. But if those responses are responding to, every single input of what's happening around the world, it's just going to totally override your own kind of creative life force. So for me, that's the priority, is like, I want to do whatever I'm capable of doing. So I don't go to the grave with something that I really wanted to do. And, I just got distracted.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I like the point you made earlier about how these are forces that you can't win that fight against. I've not heard it phrased that way, but I think it's true. There are so many smart people, and there's so much money thrown at this, at addicting you. They're so skillful. It's like tobacco. The cigarette is made to be as addictive as possible. These things are designed to hook you. And I recognize that I'm more of a creator than I am a consumer. I don't like watching content. I don't like scrolling through content on TikTok. I don't like scrolling through content on Instagram. I don't do that. I like creating stuff. And that makes me a bad engager with these platforms, because I should be going on all of your posts and liking them, and then you'll see mine. But I don't do that component. I just broadcast. I'm a one-way street because I like to create. That's where the joy is for me. But I have noticed that when I do go on Instagram or these platforms, or New York Times lately, if you go on the news app, it's shocking how fast your brain chemistry changes. Within seconds of going on the app, suddenly you don't notice that it's a beautiful day outside anymore. You don't notice that there's that butterfly landing on that leaf. You just notice that somebody that you consider to be a peer is performing on a stage with 50,000 people and making more money than you. And why are they making more money than you? And why is their life better than yours? And why are they flying around on a private jet with champagne, and you're sitting alone in your room with carpal tunnel syndrome typing on your keyboard for 14 hours a day? It's so fast that you go from zen to really bummed about the state of your life. And I think it's an important conversation to admit and to treat this the way that we treat other addictions, but I don't think people are ready to really treat it that way. It almost sounds sort of laughable in our culture if we say it's the same as alcoholism, for example.
And also because it's not necessarily the same. It's like, classically, addiction is a thing that we do to cope with pain, right? There's some pain that we have inside that it would just be too overwhelming to face it all at once, right? And so addiction is like a form of comforting ourselves, and hopefully we heal and we can slowly confront these painful things inside. That's different than living in a society that is structurally feeding you, again, like cheap calories. It's just like, every 8 seconds, we'll just put a Skittle in front of you and just try to not eat that Skittle. Good luck. That's not addiction. That's like whatever. It's like the anti-hack for the human animal. It's like, how would you just totally unravel and make useless a human animal? You would give it these addictive technologies. So what I think is really important about this conversation is validating that, yep, this is an impossible game to win. And so you have permission to kind of do whatever you need to do. If it's true for you too, that like going outside and playing a game or like having dinner with a friend is more nourishing, or being a creator instead of a consumer is more nourishing for you than scrolling, then do whatever you need to do to win that fight.
And, I would love to, I want to agree with you. I really do. But I don't know that I agree that alcohol addiction is different from social media. I'm curious why you see a distinction there. And on a neurochemical level, wouldn't it be sort of similar, but they're both giving you dopamine, they're both helping you escape some sort of trauma? Why do you see such a clear and obvious distinction there?
I think they're the same in some ways and different in other ways. Yeah. So a human organism functioning in an optimal way, or let's say the human organism is designed to function in an optimal way in certain environments. Yet, regardless of the environment that we're put in, if we have a lot of pain that we're not ready to face, we'll look for some form of comfort. So, if you're living in a monastery or up high in a mountain or whatever, there's no alcohol supply. Your addiction might be biting your nails. Like, what are the like original addictions that pre-societal early humans had? Like, they had some coping mechanisms. And so it's more like a spectrum, right? Where whatever those coping mechanisms were might have been less classically considered as addictions because they weren't as damaging. It might have been so hard to find the quote unquote alcohol of the day. And if you're living in a tribal environment, that instead all you can do is go take a walk or go get a hug or go scream, in the trees. As much as you might wish you had a cheeseburger or three to comfort you, you didn't have that. And then alcohol came along at some point, and it's like, oh, this is way more of a effective numbing mechanism, but it's also more damaging, right? And so as we move down that spectrum, I think we're getting into more of what might be considered addiction. So I don't know, maybe I'm talking my way into agreeing with you more, that it's like, wow, now we've moved beyond alcohol and we have
right.
A huge variety of other consumables and technology and this sort of thing. But I think maybe an important distinction there is like, we're working so counter to what's healthy for the human animal that, and we're like, social media is way more addictive than alcohol in that it's easier. It's more accessible. The hit of, cheap dopamine is way faster.
Available to all.
I think the point that I'm making is not that it's not also an addiction. It's just that it's like structurally even tougher almost and like even more universally applicable.
Well, I think the thought occurs to me that these forces, they push in opposite directions simultaneously. So alcohol simultaneously makes you feel really good in the moment, like any drug does, but your life and your depression, your sense of self-worth is getting consistently worse. I think social media is the same. The dopamine that you get from being in this laughing, happy, smiley, dancy, jokey world of perpetual scrolling, that's just this perpetual up motion. But at the same time, the perpetual down motion is you're not good enough, you're not worthy, you're not smart enough, you're not attractive enough, you're not rich enough, you're not funny enough, you are not enough. This life that you have is not good enough. And instead of getting out there and doing something about it, you are going to start embracing and internalizing the narrative that you don't deserve those things. And therefore, you're going to keep scrolling because it's easier to keep scrolling than to stop scrolling, call up a buddy on Focusmate, and actually do the thing that you want to do because your self-worth has been so compromised. You think, I'm not worthy of that. Why should I have a goal? I should just play video games 23 hours a day because that is the one way that I can exist in this world. I don't think it's the truth. I really don't. But I do have to believe that a lot of people feel that way. And you also mentioned, men's support groups at the beginning of this. People who never, the failure to launch syndrome, as they call it, people who never leave their parents' basement, who play video games, they're addicted to video games, they're addicted to porn, they're addicted to social media. It starts this cycle of devaluing oneself that is really, really, really hard to break out of. Like any other addiction. Like, go tell an alcoholic, hey, just stop drinking and your life will improve. It's like, it is just that easy, but it's also unbelievably hard. And I think that's what drew me to your story, is that I love people who sit at the intersection of these types of things, who sit at that line between impossible and possible. And I think that's kind of what you're trying to do with Focusmate. And that's what's so fascinating. So on a personal level, do you feel that you've gotten a lot of rewards internally and with your sense of value and self-worth from pursuing this endeavor since 2016? Has it changed your relationship to the world other than your own procrastination?
Oh man, 1,000%. I mean, I kind of spent my 20s trying a lot of things and not really having success at any of them. And initially that was kind of fun, and it was all about life has so much potential and I could do or be anything. And then, I started getting to a point where I was like, it's not so much fun anymore to like keep trying and not succeeding at things. And maybe there's actually a pattern here that I'm not just waiting for the future and experimenting. I'm actually being consistently unsuccessful. And that really started to freak me out. It so happens that me stumbling upon this technique coincided with the opportunity to build this business. And for me, it was like, this is the kind of moment of truth. Am I going to decide, commit, I'm going to build this thing, that I'm going to create this thing that my heart, my soul is saying, let's do this. And am I going to have the capacity to succeed at that? And so, yeah, kind of a weird coincidence, I guess, that this became the tool that ultimately was the scaffolding that allowed me to grow into the person that could build a business, a successful business. And it has absolutely transformed everything about my life, my identity, just this sense of, if there's something that I want to do, I am the kind of person that can and will do it. And that was not true before Focusmate.
I think in your darkest moment, when you had that realization that things were perpetually not working out, was there something like a little flame or a tiny voice inside, something that you were able to hold on to that said, I know I'm capable of doing more, I just don't necessarily know what it is? Like, what do you think helped you turn that corner versus just staying and dwelling in that place forever?
Gosh, it's kind of a scary question. I do think there are people that ultimately do give up, and I don't know, maybe I just got lucky. I was young enough. I was still energized enough to feel like I got to keep looking for solutions. I don't take a lot of personal credit for that. I think sometimes we need some lucky breaks. And for me, it was like, I did try a lot of things that didn't work. And then I tried one that did. Yeah. And I happened to be in a life circumstance where I had the resources to keep trying to change and to, build this business. But yeah, a lot of that is luck, not skill. Your question kind of makes me think of that. I don't know if this is like a Christian phrase or something, but it's like, there, but for the grace of God, go I. Yeah. You see somebody living under a bridge, and the kind of arrogant point of view is like, well, I made better choices than that person.
Right. That's very simplistic, of course. Yeah.
But yeah, I think the reality is like, we're all capable of, if things went a different way, we're all capable of being that person living under the bridge. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about your question. Is I got some good, lucky breaks at all sorts of different times in my life.
Yeah. I think it's such a heroic act, and it's rare to witness, but we've all at this point in our lives witnessed people who have not succeeded in that. My own stepbrother being one who essentially, took his own life relatively recently. We know what can happen and how far down the negative side of the rabbit hole goes, but we all also have a few examples of people who really have turned things around. And there are a couple people in my life who were heading in a very dark, very unsustainable way. And somehow we're able to turn that corner and exhibit just heroic, monumental effort, and now are doing unbelievable things. And to me, I don't know what it is, but that story resonates with me as a human so much. When I see that, there's something that just fills my heart with joy. And I think it's one of the most courageous and noble and awesome things any human can do, because we all know how hard it is. It's so tough to do that, to have that willpower to keep going in the face of enormous opposition, to keep going when all seems lost. And I think, what you are helping do is facilitate that in a small way and in a large way. You're helping people who maybe don't have an idea of how to go forward, at least have one idea. And maybe the idea works for them, maybe it doesn't, but at least it's a path. It's something they can try. And I think how many people in this world just need one thing like you that they can try? Just one thing, just one new thing that you haven't tried before. Try that and then see. I guess that's just my roundabout way of saying, really cool that you've done this. I think it's an awesome concept. And the flip side, I am sure that of the people who listen to this, any number of them are going to be procrastinating on something big or small, or there's probably something they want to do, whether it's write a book or finish an essay or anything like that. How would you get them into the world of Focusmate? What would you say to encourage them to take the leap and just sign up?
Yeah, sometimes we can get cynical or proud about trying the next thing. I certainly have been at points in my life where I was like, I have effing tried everything. Don't come to me with another thing and your stupid optimism, because I've done it already. So I've been there, and there's the cynicism, and then there's the pride of, we live in a culture that somehow we think it's better to figure it out how to do it on our own, to not need help, to not need a therapist, to not, in this case, to not need a body double or an accountability buddy. And so those things get in the way, understandably, of us taking that next step and trying that next experiment. And I just keep coming back to, but being alive is pretty freaking magical. And every single one of us does have the spark of some genius, some gifts that we're just going to be sad and regret it if we don't give those. And giving those gifts is more important than any shame or pride or anything that could get in the way. So hopefully you don't have those obstacles and you're just like, wow, this sounds cool. Yeah, right. It has changed thousands of lives. Maybe it could change yours. Yeah. I hope you're in that place. But if you do have some resistance around it, I'd just say, I don't know what your gifts are, but I really hope you find a way to give them. And like Ross, like you've said, maybe this could be the thing that just makes a huge difference for you.
Heck yeah, what an awesome thing. I was going to, usually I let people wrap things up by giving some parting wisdom. That was pretty good. Any other bits of wisdom you want to say? I think you kind of already did it. Do you have a maxim or a mantra or a way that you live life or a new thought, something to leave people with to end this episode?
No, we cashed out all of my wisdom, Ross.
and sooner than usual with 5 minutes to spare. All right, cool. We're going to feed this into a new ChatGPT. It's a tailored GPT for sale for the low price of $49.99. Pick it up in the OpenAI store. No, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad we were able to finally make this work. Even though they're clearly building a new street outside of your house right now. We'll see how much we're going to really push the limits of noise reduction software. Maybe you won't hear anything. Maybe AI noise reduction then this joke will fall flat. But no, it's been super great to chat with you. I think it's awesome. One more fan in your corner. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep making that positive change, and I'll continue to support you. So thanks for joining me, man. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Really, really appreciate it, Ross. Thanks for having me on.
Sweet. With that, the podcast is over.